right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Wednesday, February 12th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, we've got the biggest movie of the year so far. It's a superhero movie, so you know what that means. We had to do it. We had to get the team back together. No asterisks needed here. We have got our chief superhero correspondent. He is from thedirect.com. He's from Cinema Spending. You know him, you love him. David Thompson, welcome back to the BO Boys.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Like you said, 2025, it's finally here. We are soaring into the skies with our red, white, and blue. And man, I'm just excited to be here.
So they come in red now. That is the big. Is that the official tagline of Captain America: Brave New World? They come in red now. That's the line, right? Or I didn't know they come in red. I know I've seen this trailer 50 times, but that line keeps morphing in my brain.
Yeah, I think they come in red now. I think that's simply what it is. Yeah, that works. That could be its tagline, sure.
Yeah, Captain America: Brave New World. They come in red now. Clayton, I think the first thing we got to do, because you were asking him in the hallway before we started rolling. David, you've seen Captain America: Brave New World. Is that correct?
Yes.
Legally, what are you allowed to say? And I know you don't want to blow your review. Of course, go to thedirect.com. That's going to be where it's in depth and you go through all the theories and such. But top line, disappointed, happy with what you saw. What is your big takeaway from actually having seen Brave New World?
Yeah, so I can talk about it really openly now because they had the social embargo lift like right after people saw it at midnight last night. Then the review embargo lifted today. So, it's pretty much free game. Just don't want to spoil it for anyone. For me, I would just say for fans going into it, just to temper your expectations. Like we've kind of gotten accustomed to some MCU movies, like recently A No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, even Quantumania, Deadpool, Wolverine. They're a bit more like event style of films. This one's not at all. This one is a really small film in my opinion, like comparatively. And overall, like there are some bright spots in the movie. I think Anthony Mackie makes a fine Captain America, his Sam Wilson character. I think some of the action's really cool. I did enjoy when Harrison Ford finally hulks out and it's the big red Hulk and they come in red now. But, I was going to say I could go down a little bit of like the behind the scenes we can talk about a little bit today. But like going into the movie, being in like the business that I'm in and knowing the production hell this thing went through, I could unfortunately see it on the big screen. And I don't know if it's just the writing because they got so many cooks in the kitchen ultimately. The editing, like you could just personally, I mean, and not everyone's going to notice or think this when they go and see it. I don't think. I took one of my best friends who's not in the industry at all, doesn't even go to the movies that much, and he loved it. And for me, I was almost, I think, jaded walking out of it because I was kind of able to like have more of a critical eye, I guess, watching it and kind of like see through. Like, for instance, Giancarlo Esposito was added during the reshoots. He was not in the original script, nor was he there during the original filming session. He has a small but integral part in the story, and it kind of sticks out that it was during reshoots. And like I said, I think the writing at the end of the day was the problem. There are a few new characters that are really bad that I'm like, man,
are really bad. That's a strong new characters that are really bad. That seems like a lot.
Yeah, like, so, for example, there were characters that came back from the Disney Plus show that was kind of the intermediate between Avengers Endgame and this movie, where Sam, the character, Anthony Mackie, takes the shield of Captain America finally, and that's a good show. Those characters that come back from that series in the movie, the same writer came back to write part of this script, and you can see where that happened, where it's like, okay, like we're getting continual storylines between these characters and there's actually like real chemistry and emotional beats there. It was really like the additional characters on top of that in this film. For me, Giancarlo Esposito's character, there's another character named Sabra, did not work for me at all. So like, here's the thing, like overall, I don't think it's the worst MCU movie ever, but it's definitely in the bottom third for me, you know.
Wow. Okay.
And so yeah, like, and to be honest,
We're talking the Ed Norton Hulk. We're talking. Are we talking Thor: Dark World? Are we talking in that milieu
so
of bad MCU?
here's the thing. For me, Dark World is like just very it lacks entertainment. Like it's very like dry and like boring. This one actually has some more entertainment value to me. But it's interesting you mentioned Incredible Hulk and Norton's Hulk, because this is in many ways a direct sequel to the Incredible Hulk, which came out 17 years ago. There are several. I mean, Harrison Ford's character, Thunderbolt Ross, formerly played by William Hurt, who passed away, he was in Incredible Hulk. You know, Samuel Stern's the character in this movie. He comes back. He was in the Incredible Hulk. Liv Tyler's in this movie briefly from the Incredible Hulk, right? Like, and that's all reported. I'm not spoiling anything.
Got it. And playing her character from the Incredible Hulk, not playing her character from the Aerosmith videos. Because that I mean, Clayton, that would be a character that you would love to see come back, right? The Liv Tyler from the Aerosmith videos.
Yeah, I believe she was actually only in one Aerosmith video. Alicia Silverstone was in multiple.
Right,
but I think
Alicia Silverstone's the one who jumped off the cliff with the with her belly button.
Bridge. Yeah,
a chain in her belly button.
Bungee cord, and she had gotten. You're getting this all mixed up. This is I know more about the Aerosmith connected video universe than about the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
But she did get her belly button pierced right before that. But she jumped off a bridge and she had a bungee cord wrapped around her stomach. But then I believe
I always took that shot as the bungee cord was directly connected to her belly button ring. That is how it's always. That's one of my Mandela effects. That's how I remember it. But then I also always think, why didn't it rip her stomach open?
Yeah, but that's insane. And then I think Liv Tyler was in the Crazy video with Alicia Silverstone. I believe that was the only one she was in. Don't want to miss a thing in clips from Armageddon. So technically, although it's not tied to the other videos. Here, I'm going to do some research. David, keep talking, and I'm going to do some deep research into this so the facts are straight.
Make sure to connect it to the Aerosmith arcade game also, because I think that is canon in the ACU, the Aerosmith Cinematic Universe. So David, so much to unpack here. It seems like you are trying to be positive here, and this seems like there are positive aspects of it. These seams that you're able to see in the movie, the characters that are obviously added in reshoots, the retrofitting of the plot that they tried to change. You mentioned the character of Sabra. Is that the character I've heard that seems to, at different points in the development of this, been a much bigger character, and then for different reasons they've had to pare that down or maybe even change what the character's name was? Is that that character? I feel like I've heard in the development of this movie that there was definitely a character that they've had to shift around a lot.
Yes, that's her. So Ruth is like the character's name. Sabra is like the alias hero character from the comic books. I actually don't know if Sabra is even mentioned in the movie. Now that I think about it, like, I don't know if they name drop the actual like hero or villain name, which happens sometimes in comic book movies. So yeah, like you can totally tell with her, her role was cut down. Unfortunately, I also didn't love her performance, so I actually wasn't that upset by her role being cut down. Like, there is a scene where she's first introduced where it's her, Anthony Mackie, and Harrison Ford, and I'm almost sitting there like, oh gosh, like, Mackie and Harrison Ford, I think very strong performances. I will say, like, on the positive, like the two things I want to mention that stand out to me, really, Mackie and Harrison Ford do a great job. Like, Harrison Ford's not, I don't think, in my opinion, phoning this one in. He actually is putting on a good performance. Like, I feel like he actually did like kind of give his all, which was impressive because he's talking about some pretty silly stuff at times, and he's now the president of the United States in this series, or in this movie. So I thought they were good, but yeah, like, I'm curious to see the audience reaction, because the critics' reaction has been pretty negative so far. Like, the critics' reaction's been in the bottom tier of the MCU, and obviously that could factor into, overall predictions for the box office. But quite frankly, taking it a step back, with all the reshoots and all the delaying, it was supposed to be May 24, then July 24, and then Bob Iger essentially was like, hey, man, I don't want 2024 to have any MCU stinkers on there post the Marvels. He knew Deadpool and Wolverine was going to be a smash success, which it was. And this is kind of just the leftover crumbs. And last thing on this, as an MCU fan, so we have an Avengers movie coming out next May. Huge deal. It feels a little rushed, though, even though it's been, it'll be 7 years. It feels rushed because there's not been a lot of connective tissue between like each project going forward. This one doesn't do much to like make any connections. Like it's very standalone, and I don't know if that's going to work. I think it actually might work for it, because where people get a lot of MCU fans can get upset is if like Quantumania, if a movie sucks and it's supposed to like really be integral to the overarching story. For me, Captain America, I'm not sure if it sucks. I don't think it's the best MCU movie, but beyond just Sam Wilson's journey continuing as, Captain America here, it's not that integral to anything. There's no multiverse or anything like that. So if you're like multiverse jaded, you actually might like this. And then I know like the buddy that I took to the film last night, he definitely he liked it more than Deadpool and Wolverine, like wholeheartedly, So I'm curious to see how like cinema score will be, just like audience reactions in general, because it really could be all over the place.
So Clayton, we've heard a lot, and thank you, David. This is an incredible breakdown so far. Some of the things I've heard, Clayton, Harrison Ford does not phone it in. It's not the worst MCU movie, and it doesn't push anything forward. That, though, it does seem like for you, you are our man of the people on the show, especially when it comes to the MCU. Does any of that intrigue you? The fact that it's not a multiverse, that you don't have to necessarily know much, it's a standalone, and that Harrison Ford is not phoning it in. Does any of that make you compelled to plunk down your hard-earned money that you earn at the Soot Mines to go see this movie? Or just, you use your AMCA list, so you're actually aren't plunking anything down.
Yeah. So, personally, no, I have no interest. Zero, absolute zero interest. But I think that's no surprise. But to think broadly, listening to David talk about this film, and it feels like the MCU is just stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Because I don't think there's enough general interest in superhero movies anymore that they would even care that it's not connected to anything else. But then you have the hardcore MCU fans who do still exist and want that intricate tapestry to still be a thing, because honestly, like, putting aside anything critical, what the MCU did and those movies did from 2008 to 2019 is unprecedented. And it is just a feat of logistics that I don't know if it will ever be topped, right? But I think that its time has passed so much that it's like, how much do you want to give fan service to the hardcores, and how much do you want to bring in the civilians? And they're just stuck. I think they need to find a way to make a small movie that's not connected matter to people. And it can't just be the giant events, because the way they succeeded was you would have the Ant-Man and the Wasps that didn't do the same amount of box office, but were still anticipated and people still really wanted to see, in between your huge Captain America Civil War or your Endgames or, something like Deadpool and Wolverine. If that's the way it has to be from now on, that's just bashing people in the face with so much that if you take that away from them, they're just going to be bored. I just think it's really tough, because when you look at something like Fantastic Four, too, that trailer is the 60s, which I've talked about and we've talked about on this show. Listen, people don't like that early 60s aesthetic. I'm trying to think of a movie that's been a hit that has had that early 60s aesthetic to it, right? Maybe Catch Me If You Can, right? When did that take place? Is that early 60s? Like possibly?
Yeah, that's 50s, 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So there's an element of that maybe was successful, right? But I'm thinking is anything going to be enough to get them back to where they were? And is it a reasonable expectation to ask them to get back to where they were?
Yeah, I think the back to where they were is too much. And it's like to say that the expectation is how do you get back to being the most successful 10-year movie run of all time? That's too high of an ask. I think the thing with a movie like Captain America Brave New World is it's a smaller Marvel movie. It's not as interconnected. There's not all these giant stars or characters. And that could work if the movie is legitimately really good. And I think we're seeing these reviews, it's at 50% Rotten Tomatoes. David's got it in the lower third of MCU movies. So the buzz coming out of this or going into this weekend is not going to be, hey, this movie is smaller, but it's great. Like, it doesn't seem like that buzz is going to happen. And if that's the case, what is the thing that makes this special? If it's not a big multiverse and you're not getting all the cameos from Johnny Storm and Wesley Snipes as Blade and all that kind of stuff, but you're also not getting a particularly good movie. I mean, David, amongst the comic book fan audience, what is the hook for this movie beyond it's a superhero movie that exists?
Honestly, the thing they've leaned into most in marketing, which we've already talked about a little bit today, is that there is an angry Hulk in this movie. And we haven't had an actual angry, raging Hulk really, in a way, since Avengers Age of Ultron almost 10 years ago. Like, there was a Hulk in Ragnarok, but he was only partially angry. I guess that would be maybe the last one. We kind of got him a little bit in Infinity War, and then it was just boom, gone. And since this, really, genuinely, since Infinity War, we haven't had an angry Hulk. And people like that. And I'll be honest, like, one of my biggest praises of this movie is the Red Hulk action sequences, because it is good if you're into that, like the angry, bashing, crazy, like unbelievable, like jumping over buildings and stuff. Like, it's fun, it's entertaining. I'm not going to spoil everything that happens, but like it's cool. So there's the Hulk element, which I think very wisely they've leaned into a lot in the marketing, like a lot more than they probably should. But I think it is a sign of lack of confidence because the elephant in the room we haven't talked about yet. This is not Chris Evans, right? This is not Steve Rogers.
Yep.
And I think at that, like, just on that level, and the February release, which obviously Black Panther, that's like the anomaly where it had such an incredible success in February for being an MCU movie. But it not being Chris Evans, the expectations are already tempered when it comes to it being a smash hit. Like, there's $100 million opening weekend. There's no way. I'm telling you right now, like, there's no way it hits. I don't even think it hits that over the President's Day weekend, the 4-day. I would be surprised if it did. I just feel like the buzz for this one isn't there. Now, will that be do I necessarily think when I come back on here in a few months and talk about the Thunderbolts, if it's going to transition over to that? I don't know, right? Like, I don't think so. And same with Fantastic Four. I think the biggest thing into what Clayton was saying about getting back, the Marvels murdered that idea. Yeah. Because before the Marvels, MCU opening weekends in general and overall box office totals, it was impenetrable. It was, you couldn't touch them, right? Like, there was always insane interest opening weekend. And now we've tempered expectations for sure. Like, this movie's not going to be, it's going to be, speaking of bottom third of my personal opinion, it's going to be bottom 10 of opening weekend domestic. Wow. Like almost without a doubt, right? But that's a testament to how successful it's been, really. Like, most of them do open to 100 million plus. And this one it won't, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, for fans that are going to go see it, or for fans that aren't going to go see it, there is something to be said for the fact that this movie tries not to be too much, which I think will work for it. Like, the Marvels, maybe you could argue, tried to be too much, and I think people were turned off by that. Eternals is a great example of trying to be too much, and a movie that really had such amazing buzz behind it, but just was a little misguided, I guess, within the MCU.
David,
by the way,
will we ever see the Eternals again? Does Kumail Nanjiani have to keep on his chicken and broccoli quote unquote diet, or is he allowed to get off a cycle of chicken and broccoli? Like, where are these Eternals? Are they ever coming back?
So the Celestial from that movie is in this one because that's like a huge thing where like the thing sticking out of the earth, which Marvel fans have been like asking for since Eternals came out for years of like, okay, but what happened to, the Celestial that's sticking out of planet Earth? Why isn't that talked about enough? And it finally is head on discussed in this movie.
Okay. Is it like an amusement park in this universe now? Did they just have a water slide around the Celestial head?
That would have been cooler. Not yet though. Not yet.
Okay.
It seems a little more like fresh and up for grabs from different nations in this movie.
Oh wow.
Which leads to a pretty cool conflict. But no, I think on characters, there will never be, at least never say never, but there's not going to be an Eternals 2. That's not happening anytime soon. But you never know with crossovers. You never know with cameos. Like these big events that are coming up, you really never know. And I think soon, Marvel's going to be heading towards Secret Wars. It's going to be heading towards, I think, a soft reboot where X-Men are going to be the new kid on the block, and they're going to really get all the attention from Kevin Feige, if I'm being completely honest. That, Spider-Man, Avengers, a couple other characters, and that's pretty much going to be it.
Yeah. Do any of the characters in this movie start hinting at just knowing their time is almost over, that the X-Men are on their way? Because it feels like at this point, this movie, Thunderbolts, I think Fantastic Four, they're their own thing. But this movie and Thunderbolts, it really feels like the characters should start referencing, that they've got to get their stuff out. We got to clean out this closet here because, let's just face it, we're losing this room. The X-Men are taking over. Like, do they start hinting at the fact that they've got to, maybe look for a new job soon?
No, but I will say that there is like an X-Men reference in the movie, Okay. So like under the radar, slyly, I guess like it's in the script. I don't know if Anthony Mackie's saying that. Anthony Mackie said he wants to try to play the character for 10 more years, which I could see, by the way. That's a thing. You mentioned the Eternals. And like Captain Marvel, for instance, like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel is very up in the air. It feels like for like her return in an Avengers movie. That is not going to be the narrative at all for Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson. Like he is 1000% going to be a main key player, no matter if this movie is good or bad. I feel like that they didn't, which I think fans will rejoice in hearing. And once they see it, they did no damage to that character, which at the end of the day, after hearing the production craziness with this and it's like kind of like disaster, that's a win in itself. But yeah, it's interesting because I'm hoping like this is always the movie. I said it recently on the Direct podcast where like my expectation was always going to be this was going to be the worst MCU movie this year. Like I expect Thunderbolts to be much better. I expect Fantastic Four to be way better than this, but that's like a cool original idea, at least to me. And they're doing something interesting and out of the box. This one is kind of my last thing. They're playing it safe. Like I think what they did was it's a shorter movie. It's like the 8th or 6th shortest MCU movie ever, under 2 hours, which is great. And I think they just trimmed a lot of the stuff that kind of maybe added fluff and maybe made it a little bit more boring. And I think that actually overall might help its performance.
Clayton, what do you think, man of the people? Are the people going to respond to a shorter MCU movie that doesn't try and do too much? I mean, it's hard. They didn't get that across in the promotion. They maybe in the commercials to lead up front, this will be under 2 hours. This will not make your head explode with all of the, multiple action scenes that we're going to cram in there. Like, could they have gotten that across better, do you think, Clayton? Because, I mean, hearing that, it's definitely enticing to me that this is under 2 hours and not as overstuffed as other Marvel movies.
But don't you think that comes off as meekness more than anything? It doesn't feel like it is a thing that is conscious in the sense of, oh, okay, let's do this for storytelling purposes. It's more like, let's not outstay our welcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's the sort of thing with these movies is you do want something that has bombast and confidence, and this whole movie feels a little bit like, you still like us, right? I mean, look, Red Hulk, and look, there's the Falcon as Captain America. That's something cool, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and even the marketing of trying to, you know, go back to, oh, it's like a political thriller, like the Captain America one you liked, Winter Soldier. It just feels like, and you've mentioned this, Pat, like, and you as well, David. Let's just get through these. And I think that's how I feel. And I don't know if that's just because I'm so immersed in all of the chatter. It's really hard to look at what the general public is going to think of this movie as somebody who is like sat here and thought about how this movie is going to do for like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this and Thunderbolts, yeah, it feels like, I mean, it almost feels like the way Aquaman, the sequel, the Aquaman sequel felt. Whereas, like, we got to just get this over with because we can't hold on to this any longer. And, I mean, with all the delays and reshoots of this and the rewriting of it, that's what it feels like. It's like this thing isn't ever going to be close to a good movie. So let's just let it free, cut our losses, and move on.
Well, they definitely are giving it promotion. Like I get what you mean comparing it to Aquaman 2, but Aquaman 2 held their premiere at a 7-Eleven. You know, they were giving out frozen shrimp. Jason Momoa had to walk around just pouring half slushies in because they didn't even pay for the machine to run the entire party. So he had to share his slushie with other people who attended the Aquaman 2 premiere. So this definitely has more of a push. It's got a lot of promotion, commercials airing all across sports the last couple of months. Yeah. So they definitely want to make this a hit. It seems like, yes, the production, they had to get past it because they've been working on it for like 5 years straight, but they are trying to promote it as if this is a big deal. I mean, what about the fact, guys, that we just haven't had a new big movie in a while? Do you think this is a lucky time for this movie to come out because it's been since Mufasa and Sonic in December since we've had anything approaching a blockbuster? So people might just be completely starved for a big excuse to go to the movies. I do think that's going to be at play this weekend compared to if this movie opened in April after a bunch, after Minecraft, let's say.
This is one of your pet theories, Pat, that people want something big. And I'm not saying that like derisively, although anytime I speak, usually people think that it's out of derision. But
pet theory usually is a somewhat derisive term, saying someone has a pet theory. But yeah, perhaps. I mean, people like pets. I don't like pets, but I do like pet theories.
Yeah. So, but this is one of your pet theories, and I am curious. I would love to go and do some research and do some number crunching for some of these movies that have come out after a sort of tentpole or big popcorn movie drought, and see if there's any validity to that. Because I think of things in the sense of, do I want to see it or do I not? And not like, when's the last time I saw something similar to this? Right? So I don't know necessarily how much that matters to people as to like how big a movie is, compared to, does it look good? And I think a lot of people will eschew this because it just doesn't look good.
What about you, David? Do you think my pet theory of blockbusters after a long drought get a little advantage because people are starved? And I think, Clayton, you come at it from our point of view of frequent moviegoers. And it's more the person who really does this a few times a year and needs to be kicked back in the habit. I think this is the kind of movie that gets, it gets people to remember, oh yeah, movie theaters, big movies are a big deal. But David, at your screening, did you feel that extra energy than maybe you have in the last few months where it's been a more smaller mid-level of movie? Did it feel like people could at least were up for the fact that, oh yeah, this is a blockbuster or attempted blockbuster?
Yeah, I guess so. The screener I was at was kind of small, like in terms of the audience size. And I think on the theory, it just feels like nowadays things are just so unpredictable when it comes to what's going to generate legit buzz and get people's butts out of their seats at home, turning on their TV, to actually going out to the theaters, because it just feels like really hard to get people to go out to the movies, like more than for big blockbusters, like more than like a handful of times a year, you know? And I think really what it is, like my kind of like sub theory to yours, is it really feels like, even like anecdotally, people my age or just whatever age, like they only will go a handful of times a year and they pick and choose. It's like, all right, is this worth it? Is this going to be the one I go to? Or am I going to wait for the summer release slate? Which if you look at it, the summer, like once that gets going, it's going to be a lot, I think, greater of a time in theaters. So maybe not the Valentine's Day of it all. Like, I'm not sure how else is working for it. Like Friday night or you know, guys that are in relationships really taking their lady out to see Captain America. I don't know.
And that's the thing in those 2010s and especially 2017, 2018, 2019, these were date movies. These were movies where a guy could go to their partner and say, why don't we do this for Valentine's Day? Why don't we see Black Panther or you know, whatever movie would have been out at that time? And
for sure.
And even someone who's not a huge superhero fan, they would have said, you know what? This is acceptable because this is the culture right now. These movies are the culture.
Yeah.
So fine. This will be our Valentine's Day. Make sure you get me some chocolates or something at the theater, get me some V-Day goobers or whatever. But now I think that is a tough sell in 2025.
Yeah.
If your partner is not already a super fan, I think proposing, let's go see the new Marvel movie for Valentine's Day. I mean, Clayton, is that a relationship ender? Is that a way to get out of a relationship?
Oh, I definitely think, and I wish I could remember what movie it was that we talked about this previously. And it was an email, I believe. Man, somebody dig through the archives and find this, because
it could have been like Quantumania, possibly a couple of years ago.
I don't think it was a superhero movie, but it was. Yeah, this is a great anti-Valentine's movie. Like, that is the move. If you are sort of a person who you're in a relationship, you know, you got on the wrong subway car, right? And you're trying, and you didn't get off at the first couple stops because you're thinking, oh, maybe this train goes to 42nd and I can just transfer there. And then you shoot past 42nd, and you're desperately trying to get off this wrong train, right? The best way, ask this person to go see Captain America Brave New World with you. And it has to be somebody that you know has no interest in this whatsoever, obviously, right? If it's somebody who is a fan, then they'll be like, oh, that's sweet, you know that I like this.
Right.
I'm talking about a normie, right? You set them up for this, you know, date. You don't tell them even. That's the other thing, is you say, I've got a surprise for you. I'm taking you somewhere. They're thinking dinner. They're thinking drinks. They're thinking dancing. They're thinking something fun.
Wine bar, jazz club, that type of thing.
Something like
real
that.
Fancy, yeah.
And you take them to
McGuffin's at AMC
to pregame, and then they think it's a prank. You know, they're laughing because they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna get a drink at this AMC, and then we're going somewhere else." And no,
that it's a jazz club, yeah.
No, you sit them down, make them sit through 30 minutes of trailers, and then sit through this movie that is incomprehensible to them, right? They will break up with you, or inevitably break up with you. I mean, this definitely will sever it in a way that you'll be in the clear pretty soon.
Well, here's the thing. In that scenario, though, the studio doesn't care. AMC doesn't care.
No.
Sure, your relationship's ending, but you already bought your ticket. So I think the there's that scenario where you want to do this to break up with someone that you're stuck with, but you don't have the balls to break up with, yourself. But for people who want to stay together and are planning a date out together, they're not going to choose Captain America Brave New World the way they would have chosen Black Panther 5 years ago.
Yeah. But Pat, do you know how many cowardly men are out there that don't want to break up with a girl because they feel like they'll be the bad guy? This is the perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
This is the perfect way to do it. This is for all the cowards out there. And listen, ladies, you can be cowardly too. It's 2025. I understand that. So if you want to be a coward, do it. I just think maybe I'm genderizing this too much, but I do think that if a man brings a woman to this that they want to get out of a relationship with, that's almost a 99.9% guarantee. Because then the 0.01%
math on the fly. Here we go.
Thank you. Will then be a hardcore MCU fan. Because they'll be converted somehow. This is a very small percentage. And then maybe that, if you're a fan, maybe that'll ignite the relationship and make you be like, oh, I actually did do the right thing. So there's a possibility that it could, turn everything around. Now, that's a very, very small, infinitesimal sort of percentage, but it's possible. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible. I mean, I know that I would not even propose this to my wife
as a joke.
Not even as a joke, because we have our ups and downs, but I don't want to get divorced. I don't want it. It's a hassle. It's, I've seen Marriage Story. It's a lot.
Great movie.
Great movie. Terrifying movie. Great movie. And I don't want to go through that. So I would not even propose that to her. Hey, Valentine's Day this year, let's go see Captain America Brave New World, because I do think she'd drop papers. Mm-hmm. She would draw papers up. So, it's not a date movie. It's still a big high awareness movie. And we do have to talk about another movie before we get off of Captain America. We talked about him a little before, but does Harrison Ford mean anything? You mentioned, David, the Hulk as a character and sort of an angry Hulk as a draw, but does Harrison Ford as that angry Hulk actually mean anything? Or to me, the persona of Harrison Ford these last few years make me think that his Hulk is going to be an annoyed Hulk and a sort of honestly, just a high Hulk. But I don't know how much Harrison Ford right now has the juice as you've got to see him as the Hulk just based on who his persona is now. But I mean, you tell me, do you feel like Harrison Ford in this role is a +1 for people?
It's definitely a plus. I think it's a plus in terms of awareness. Like, say, when we were watching the NFL playoffs or any of these big kind of commercials, just older demographics recognizing someone on the TV screen when the Captain America trailer shows up, because, newsflash, he's not the Hulk most of the movie. He's just himself in character. And I do think William Hurt passed away, and that's why he's not in this role anymore. They hired Harrison Ford obviously for a reason, but that was all before when the latest Indiana Jones movie came out. That didn't perform quite like they liked. So maybe the box office benefit isn't as great as they were expecting, but it's definitely not a negative. I just don't know if it's really going to be, the numbers we're going to be talking about today for this movie. It'll be number one, obviously, but it's not, nothing about this movie is pushing it over the top and really nothing is igniting this movie to soar up. It's not it's so cheap, but there's no surprise, and I don't want to spoil it. There's no surprise interest in this movie. There's these other MCU movies that come out and sure, it may be cheap and it's for frills and we're all post No Way Home, anything can happen. It doesn't happen in this movie, right? It's a normal, it's a ground level MCU movie. And I will say, I have seen people rave about that fact. So if that's you, if that's something that you're into, maybe you will like this. Maybe you think it'll be a breath of fresh air compared to Deadpool and Wolverine. Like my friend said, where it's Deadpool and Wolverine is just this wild kind of, wacky movie with all the comedy and the multiverse and stuff, where this is like, quite frankly, it's the most grounded MCU movie since Black Widow, and
Wow.
it's like that. I mean, that was during COVID and stuff, but in terms of like the quality and like the feel of it, it's very similar to that. But no, it's the worst Captain America movie. I will say that. I don't like it more than any of the previous ones, and that once again has nothing to do with Anthony Mackie as Captain America. It just has to do with the story itself.
Does it feel like a TV show? That is a common criticism I've heard in some of the reviews I've perused, the bad ones. Does this feel D+?
Part of it does. Parts of it do. Like, some of the action does not. If you pay attention to the Marvel Disney Plus stuff, like some of the action on that definitely like falls flat and feels like TV. The action is where they put the juice, like where they put the money in this one. But there are scenes in between. Like there specifically, I mentioned this somewhere. Like CGI is a problem in this movie, but it's typically not in the big action set pieces. It's in like just a random talking scene where it just looks like my head floating right now. It's Anthony Mackie's head, and it's just like green screen all around me, like, and it's noticeable. Like if you go to the movies a lot or see a lot of these big budget movies, like it's noticeable. And I think that has to do with the reshoots where it's like, oh, like we have to get this line in, but you weren't, we need to reshoot this, but we don't have we're not going back to the location because they filmed different locations during both times shooting. So there's a little bit of that in there. I think that is where those criticisms come from, where it's like, it's a standard looking scene. It should be shot well. And it looks, like you said, like TV.
I think these MCU movies, these standard MCU movies, not your Deadpools and Wolverines, like the ones that are, I think outside. Well, now that I guess Deadpool is technically in the MCU, I think right now, right? But they're always going to get that from people. You're never going to not hear that this movie looks like TV because of the amount of TV shows they released. You're getting that about the Fantastic Four trailer. People are saying, "Oh, this looks like D+. This looks like a TV show." They're just not going to be able to, even if it's in bad faith. You're never not going to hear that from critics moving forward, because Marvel made the decision to take this stuff to television, and it's going to haunt them.
There's another movie opening this weekend, guys, that we have not said his name, and we will now say his name, Paddington.
Yeah.
Paddington has a movie. It's his third movie. He's in Peru.
Of course he is.
It always made sense to us. We always said that, of course, Paddington he's from Peru. He's got to go to Peru. From. We've always said that. So
who doesn't know that?
This movie has made over $100 million already. It opened in October and November. It opened internationally in the UK. It's at over 100 million. So this is the rare movie where this United States is gravy for Paddington. Paddington could come up total goose egg this weekend. 0 people in the United States could buy a ticket to Paddington, and Paddington would still bend over, stick his old bum out, wave it at everyone, and laugh, because he's already made $100 million internationally. Does it feel like that kind of attitude is apparent in the promotional campaign for Paddington in Peru? I mean, to you guys, does it feel like Paddington already knows that this box office run in the States doesn't matter? Or does it feel like Paddington's been taking it seriously and they want this movie to do well here? I might be leading the witness here and how I feel, but what do you think, David?
I haven't seen a lot of promotion for this movie, so I feel like you're exactly correct. It does feel like it's being underpromoted, and like, funny enough, it's completely just banking on like its name recognition at this point. And I'll be honest, like, I think it's not going to do bad at all. I feel like whatever time of year it is right now, just like early in the calendar year for movies, it seems like over and over, my guy dog, man. That's my guy. That's my draft pick right there.
That is your guy.
Great pick, David.
All these children's movies just do fine, you know, like, and we've seen the legs too. Sonic legs, Mufasa, like all these things. Like, I feel like in many ways, like children's movies and slashers, just like any kind of like horror kind of flick, have been the most like easy to predict and some of the best investments in Hollywood recently.
I think that these Paddington movies, the first two, even though they didn't light up the domestic box office, they really have done a lot on streaming and cable and just having kids find them in different ways, because I think they are movies that you can throw on and if adults in the room, they're going to be fine with it. Like, I think an adult could watch Paddington 2 multiple times where they might not be able to watch something like Paw Patrol or things like that. So I do think that there is a knowledge of Paddington from younger people who will see this movie because they sort of grew up on those, just being in the background.
Paddington's a huge meme too. Like internet virality, like that's totally possible here.
Now, I have a theory here. And
a pet theory, perhaps.
Well, it does involve animals, so maybe, but they're not animals you normally would have as pets. So we saw the movie Better Man by Robbie Williams do terribly here domestically, but also terribly in the UK, where it was supposed to do Bafa Bobo.
Yeah, supposedly he's the biggest star in the world in the UK.
Now,
that
not currently, but at a point he was very, very successful, right? So
didn't show
I would
in the
say
numbers.
he was a Justin Timberlake. I would say he's like a Justin Timberlake. He was very big at a time. Now he can't, he's going to probably be at the 50th. I don't know. Was he announced for the SNL 50th yet?
Justin Timberlake, he's got to be there.
Okay,
I think he's there.
But
I think he gets in the room.
I don't think he was a headliner in the. I might be wrong. I don't know. We'll see if he was announced in the first two batches. But anyway, here's what I'm saying with this.
Robbie Williams will not be at SNL 50 this weekend. I think we could safely predict that.
Yeah, that's a safe prediction. Put your money on that. So, why was there no thought of casting Paddington as Robbie Williams? Because, listen, we're not blaming the monkey, because I don't think it's the monkey's fault, but also the monkey was a nobody. This monkey we'd never seen before.
Right, wasn't Kong, yeah. Wasn't Caesar.
Kong, yeah. It wasn't even a relation of Kong. This wasn't like King Kong Jr. or anything like that, right? Which we would have been like, okay, cool, well, we love Kong, and so let's see what his son can do.
Right.
I just think with Paddington, he's got a proven track record. This movie making almost $100 million worldwide already. I mean, this feels like a no-brainer to me, and I'm wondering why he didn't even get a phone call.
I mean, I haven't seen Better Man, and because of its box office, I probably never will. I would imagine Paddington would not want that role because there's cocaine use. I think there's, graphic sex scenes, and that is not good for Paddington's brand. Paddington could not have played Robbie Williams in Better Man. I do think they would have made the overture. I can't imagine Paddington would do cocaine on film. I just can't imagine that.
You don't think there's anything inside him that's saying, maybe I could stretch, maybe I could play a character you wouldn't imagine me playing?
Not until after these Paddington movies are totally finished. You don't do cocaine and then 2 months later you're eating marmalade sandwiches for kids. He wouldn't do that. I think it's a bad career move.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking it would be a way to mature him so he could get other opportunities, because we were talking about the fact that like this monkey in Better Man is never going to get another shot.
The monkey's done, and Paddington. I think Paddington knows his lane right now. It's these movies. They do well enough here. They do great overseas. Does the fact that second Paddington movie, I think we're sort of shortchanging how much adults like this series. that Paddington 2 is one of the best reviewed movies of all time. It's become sort of a meme in itself of how good Paddington 2 is. I mean, not that this was a blockbuster, but the Nicolas Cage movie a couple of years ago, what is it? Unbearable Weight of My Talent. It should have been called Cage Island. Massive Talent. Should have been called Cage Island. That movie had a whole subplot about how the two main characters loved Paddington 2. You know, like that's a thing in the air, is that adults are like, could you believe how good Paddington 2 is? This is the sequel to Paddington 2. It doesn't have that same director. I think that's probably a problem for the movie. But is that momentum there at all? Where not just kids have been watching this for years and adults tolerating it. I think there's just adult momentum of how much they liked Paddington 2. Like, do either of you think that's at play to goose this opening weekend?
It's possible. I just know, like my age or around my age, you know, Paddington 2 came out 2010s, 2017 or whenever. And, you know, that's now 8 years ago. And a lot could happen in between then. And like, that's what's cool about some of these, you know, like legacy, I guess, like animated series. Like for me, for instance, I'm like so fired up for the How to Train Your Dragon live action movie, like more than anyone I know, because I adore, from when I was a kid, those original animated movies. And I don't care if it's live action remakes shot for shot. I will be there day one. Bell's on. And like, I don't know if all of a sudden you like grow up a little bit with Paddington. Now maybe you have a kid or something like that. Like, you know, like you liked it then. Now you do have children. And like, there's a whole flow to this. You know, that's why we keep seeing these sequels after sequels after sequels, because, and we see it with like Disney and Pixar. We're getting a Toy Story 5, for God's sakes. Like, this is what happens, you know. We're getting a Shrek 5 or whatever it's going to be. Like, this is what they're trying to do, is get generations to go. And by the way, it works. So
yeah, I mean, Shrek 5 is going to be one of the biggest movies of all time. I think, right? Because just the generational and the meme, I mean, he lives on so much in memes. Yeah, but do you feel the same way about Lilo and Stitch, David? Is that like a childhood staple for you?
Yeah, I'm bullish on Lilo and Stitch. I think it's gonna do really well. I think it's gonna do better than people think. I don't remember if I said that on the draft we did earlier this year, but like I think it's gonna do really well. Even though it's going head to head with Mission Impossible, like I think it's gonna be a huge audience for that, because that same reason. Like I'm gonna be fired up to see that, and so will, you know, my 4-year-old niece. So that's how Disney does it, man. These remakes, like it's so lazy in a way, but damn, was that Super Bowl little commercial thing with him running around in the field, I think that really worked. I think that was maybe the best marketing of the night for any of these movies coming out this year.
I was going to say, really quick, Pat, unless you have something you want to ask about this week. And I just sort of wanted to get your take, David, on these Super Bowl commercials, because we haven't talked about that at all on the show, but these trailers, right? So you had Mission Impossible teaser, you had Thunderbolts asterisk, you had the aforementioned Lilo and Stitch. What else did we have?
Not Superman.
Superman. We had Dragon,
Jurassic Park.
Dragon.
Yeah, Jurassic World. Yeah, and then How to Train Your Dragon was a main one, and then they said like 2 days later, which was today, they dropped like the full official trailer. And man, is Universal pouring money into the marketing of that film. They don't even have to be marketing it yet, and they already have like multiple trailers out. They're really trying to juice it up. I think part of that has to do with the Epic Universe theme park opening in Orlando Memorial Day weekend. They're really trying to lean into all of this. But yeah, for me, like, I thought Lilo and Stitch was really like, it wasn't a trailer. It was like a fun little, like, you know, commercial of Stitch running around a football field that worked, I thought, really great. And then for me, the other standout was Thunderbolts. I thought Thunderbolts was a really great trailer. It got a lot of people's attention. And I think did a really good job like selling itself, and then also having an even better trailer released online. Like we talked about Cap a lot today. I think Thunderbolts will end up performing a lot better than Captain America.
So, since we're on the big game here, we did get an email from wannabe old boy Marcus, subject big game ads, and Marcus asked, last Sunday was a big night for character actors cashing in. I wanted to ask your opinion on whether this is a good use of advertising budgets. If I was the CEO of some of these companies, I think I'd question whether Michael Shannon or Walton Goggins are the best use of our money. I tell them not to bother unless they could find somebody who could open up a movie. Are advertising people too too film Twitter brained? Is this a recession indicator? Who's next? Box office star Jodie Comer in a Super Bowl commercial. So that's from Marcus. I mean, what do you guys think about just some of the actors we saw in these Super Bowl commercials? Because, yeah, we didn't have, I guess McConaughey was in, I think, 2 different commercials for 2 different companies. McConaughey's really cashing in. He's obviously a fairly bankable star. But, yeah, you had a lot of
Glenn Powell was in one. Right.
Glenn Powell, so that's good for him. He could use the paycheck on his way up. But, yeah, the Michael Shannon, Walton Goggins, those are not going – most people watching these commercials probably think that they are just aspiring actors who landed a role from an audition, right? Walton Goggins, Michael Shannon, great actors, but to Joe Lunchpail, they look at that guy and they're like, okay, I guess he nailed the audition for this commercial. So Clayton, do you think Jodie Comer is the next quote unquote celebrity to be in a Super Bowl commercial next year?
Yeah, I do think there's a great point here to this email by one of BO Boy Marcus, because this has been going on for a very long time. The celebrity at any level oversaturation of media in all forms, right? We talked about this with the voice talent in cartoon films, that since Robin Williams broke that barrier and said, hey, I'll do a cartoon. And then when you see the advent of Shrek and movies past that, where everybody who's voicing a character in these cartoon movies has to be an actor at some level. You had the same thing happen in magazine covers, where there used to be supermodels on magazine covers, and now it's like you got to have a celebrity on a magazine cover if it's going to sell anything. And then commercials have to have some sort of person that is a celebrity in them, at least when you're talking about these big game commercials, right? And I think there's going to be a movement away from it at some point, because we're just so when to Marcus's point, when a company's like, let's back up the truck for Michael Shannon. Now, great actor, love Michael Shannon. He's doing a tour, doing REM albums. He's living his best life. This guy seems like he's really got something going for himself. But Michael Shannon ain't going to make you buy anything, right?
Yes.
And I think it's not necessarily like movie Twitter brained. I think it's just celebrity pilled. And I think we're at some point going to have to move off that. But I love the fact that Michael Shannon's going to be able to maybe, now he's going to be able to buy his walk up that he lives in, his brownstone possibly from this commercial. That's great. I hope that happens for him.
Or a dirt bike. He could get a dirt bike.
Maybe he already owns his brownstone. I don't want to be offensive, but Walter Goggins, same guy. Great. I love that this guy is cashing checks now. But is it moving the needle at all? No.
Paddington, he had no Super Bowl presence. I mean, his movie is opening this weekend. You got Lilo and Stitch running around on the field. Again, it just feels like Paddington is taking this American release of his film for granted. I know Super Bowl time is expensive, but it does feel like Paddington is kind of sleepwalking through this opening weekend. He could have got his tickets to New Orleans for the Super Bowl and got on camera.
Isn't this the kind of snooty European attitude that you love and you like to be around? I mean, you go to Europe for your vacations, and you summer in France.
Yeah, I do. South of France.
This is
and
the
Paris,
sort of
both.
attitude towards American and the American people that you love. So does this somehow make you like Paddington more?
Well, I mean, I like to see European dominance. I would have liked to see Paddington come in and kick some American butt this weekend. I mean, is there a bigger battle of Europe versus America than Paddington versus the actual Captain America? So
yeah.
I would have loved to see, we're not going to see Paddington finish ahead of Captain America, but I do think maybe with a better promotional campaign, a little more effort, Paddington could have got there. But no, I do agree. This does seem like, to some degree, a larger issue for the world, where Europe, and I get it, and maybe I'll be part of it, is just thumbing its nose at the United States right now, where it's saying, I just don't. Paddington is basically saying, I don't want to get involved in this. Whatever it is you guys have going on over there right now, I'm staying out of it. I'll let my movie open there, but maybe Paddington just, I don't know. Paddington maybe doesn't feel safe visiting the United States right now and promoting the movie. I don't know. I don't want to speak for Paddington, but as a fellow European, yeah, I guess that could be the issue, is Paddington has just decided, either I don't feel safe going there to promote this movie with what they got going on, or I don't want to give them the time of day. But I do think that's coming across. To me, that's coming across in the campaign.
Yeah.
So let's see. I think there was one other, since you're on the show, David, and you're in our box office fantasy league, I did want to read this email that we got from wannabe old boy Matt in Maine. Hey guys. I'd love to see one of you pick up the Toxic Avenger reboot from Free Agency. It has been stuck in limbo for a year and a half while the studio looked for a distributor. Well, finally, Cineverse has stepped up to the challenge and will release this movie. Had been declared unreleasable and not safe enough to market on August 29th, just barely making the B.O. Boys box office draft cutoff. Cineverse distributed Terrifier 2 and 3, so there could be some buzz around the new Toxic Avenger movie if they market it to the right gorehounds. Do you think there's any juice for a new Toxic Avenger movie from Gen Xers like Clayton or millennials like Pat? As a fan of Troma and trash cinema, I know I am greatly looking forward to it. Who amongst you will be brave enough to add this movie to the roster? Could be a good fit with David Thompson's superhero heavy lineup. Regards, Matt in Maine. So interesting one, that the Toxic Avenger reboot is now coming out from Cineverse on August 29th, which is the last weekend of eligibility for collecting points in our fantasy league. I'm pretty sure that's the end of it. Yeah, I mean, listen, I can't wait to see this movie. I most Troma movies are actually terrible. Even
Peter Dinklage, right?
Is Peter Dinklage playing the Toxic Avenger?
So yeah, it's Peter Dinklage as. Listen to this cast, okay? And let's then think about whether you want to pick this up or not. You've got Peter Dinklage, you've got Kevin Bacon, you've got Jacob Tremblay.
Oh wow!
Right, Julia Davis, Elijah Wood. Written and directed by Macon Blair.
Yeah,
now, that doesn't help the box office, but that's going to make us rush out and see this.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. Jacob Tremblay, what's the last thing he's been in? Because he's a sneaky draw. Like, when he is the star of a movie, people want to see it. And this is going to be a movie that was, I believe, completed in 2023. So he's still going to be a young Jacob Tremblay. Now, the thing is, if he promotes this, you might have this situation where now he's 6'5", he's got the starter stash, and his voice is cracking. That could be a little bit hard to watch. But
for this type of movie, that freak show promotion might be what you want. Is an older, going through puberty, Jacob Tremblay is like maybe a good type of freak show to promote Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, the deeper he's into the dark tunnel of puberty could be helpful for this, because it is a body horror movie. And the other thing is, body horror, as we've seen with Substance, as we've seen with Dogman, is having a moment. And this is going to be a body horror.
Yeah. Also, Jacob Tremblay is currently 18, so I think he is now past puberty.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. So he will be a cool college dude promoting Toxic Avenger, even though he may have filmed this when he was just in, freshman in high school.
Yeah. So I'm thinking here, this pickup would be for somebody who is the Paddington of our league, where they're like, I'm so confident in my other movies that I'm just going to pick up Toxic Avenger and wag my little butt in your face.
Right.
That's what I feel like this would be. This would be, and David, we've talked about your roster, right? You've got roster. Superman. You've got Brave New World, which, as much as it's not going to be as big as some of the other Marvel movies, it's still one of the biggest movies that you could have drafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Dogman.
Elio.
So
what
this
a
could
lineup.
be. I do think this could be a David Thompson. You drop one of maybe your other movies. You have some of the movies that you drafted late that might make you more money, but it wouldn't be rubbing it in. So it's a possibility that if you have a late movie, you drop that, pick this up, and just rub it in our faces.
Yeah, we'll see how high Superman can go. Maybe we'll make some decisions after that.
David, that would be amazing.
Does Trauma or the Toxic Avenger mean anything to you? You're younger than Clayton and I. It means nothing. Okay, that ended way before you became a movie fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's I'm curious to see how many Trauma fans are still alive at this point. That this is going to be a real test of who's alive. This is one of those movies every once in a while where you get to do a nice test of, is this generation still alive or they died? So
Pat, will you run the plane into the ground by dropping a movie for Toxic Avenger?
So of the movies that I have that have still not opened on my roster that are in the running, I mean, listen, Love Hurts is the movie. I should have dropped Love Hurts and picked up Toxic Avenger. It couldn't do worse, even in just one weekend, than Love Hurts. I've got Nobody 2 is probably at this point the worst movie on my roster. And I do think that movie is in danger after Love Hurts so thoroughly bombed and made the nerd who could punch genre look really bad. So that's but probably not. I don't think I have a movie.
What if
I would have needed to drop.
Here's a scenario.
Okay. Well, this is now you're just okay.
Well, no, I'm just asking. This is a hypothetical.
Hypothetical. Just ask.
If Minecraft goes so far the one way it could go, which is
Super Mario.
No. The other way. Flying with the Angels. This thing opens to like 8. Right? In that inevitability. Not inevitability, but if that happens, would you just then say, I'm crashing and burning, I'm dropping something, and I'm picking up Toxie? Just to have him on the roster.
I would not do that because I play to win. And we also don't play. It's not like we have drafts for next year's, where I get first pick if I come in last.
Yeah.
So it's not really logically makes any sense. And then I wouldn't want to throw a big movie like Fantastic Four in the free agency pool because then the rest of you are just fighting each other to pick that up. So it would cause too much chaos and violence in our league.
Could you sell Fantastic Four at that point? Can we sell movies? Say this is what happens is that that Minecraft tanks out. You have no chance of winning. You say, I'll trade this movie, Fantastic Four, but you got to pay me.
So that's just
legal.
Is
that legal in this? Is that legal in this league to slide money under the table?
You know what?
And do trades.
I'm the de facto commissioner of our league, and I'm gonna say possibly because now that you brought that up, I may be the one to benefit from it.
Okay.
So
great.
yeah. So as commissioner and person who may benefit from a payola scandal, possibly.
Great.
Possibly. So guys, let's get into our predictions. We got to do our top 5. So, David, you are the guest. So, would you like to go first, second, or third in predicting this opening weekend?
I never go first, so I'm gonna go first today.
Wow,
mix it up.
Love
it. I mean, I got 2 of my draftees on my board here. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Brave New World number 1. I'm gonna go $88 million on this, which is actually slightly lower than I had it before. I think it'll be like just above the likes of, I think, Dark World and the original Doctor Strange movie in terms of opening production for the MCU. We'll see. 4-day, we'll see, and we'll see how it legs out. It's got some room to run here, like I'm curious how it does. Paddington, I think it's gonna do really well. I think it might actually open in the US better than a Paddington 2 did. So I'm gonna put that at about $15 million. I really, really like the idea we talked about of like old, now grown up fans essentially bringing a younger audience, and the younger audience also wanting to go. Number 3, Dogman. That's my guy. Wow. I think he's going to hang on really well. Like 9 million this week. I'm just going to love every second of it. That's my guy. And then 4 and 5, I'm curious what you guys have. 4, I'm going to go Hard Eyes, which I think kind of gets, stays with the whole Valentine's Day. That I think, unless your date hates horror, wouldn't lead to the cowardly breakup this weekend. I think that could actually be a really, guys, gals, that could be a really great date night, I think. If you're into that. And then number 5, go Mufasa.
Wow.
I think Mufasa. I just feel like people still want to see that movie. I know people in my life that still want to go see that movie and are like, yeah, that's been out that long, right? I'm like, no, yeah, it's only been out for like 2 months at this point. So yeah, I mean, kind of a rough look for a couple of movies, Love It Does Indeed Hurt. But yeah, I'm going to go Mufasa, number 5.
Yeah. Love Hurts could sell like 10 or 11 tickets this weekend. I think that is on the table for this Kiwi Kwan, Ariana DeBois fiasco. So, Clayton, would you like to go next?
Why don't you go next, Pat?
Sure. Number 1, Captain America Brave New World. And I do think this will get itself to $81 million. I don't think this is going to tank. I think it's going to open because of my pet theory of it's the first big movie we've had since basically the middle of December. So I think it'll get to 81 million. Number 2, Paddington. I do think played it too safe. This is a movie that could have opened huge, could have gotten to 25 or 30 if they really pushed it, but they didn't. Even with that, I think it's a good date movie. I think it is going to have some momentum from adults liking part 2. So I'm going 17 million for Paddington 2. I think it could have been a giant breakout, but I think it'll still do well. Number 3 is going to be Dogman. Of course, definitely going to be Dogman. Number 4, I think we're going to have one of them days is going to like shoot up the charts this weekend. I think that
Galentine's Day.
I think it's going to be a good date movie, a good gals going out movie that's still got all the buzz. And then number 5 will be, number 5 is going to be Mufasa. I think Hard Eyes falls down to 6, and I think Love Hurts sells 11 to 20 tickets this weekend. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little less bullish on Captain America, but I do think, I think 3-day 79. I'm sort of close to what Pat's saying here, and not that far off from David. I don't think, and because at this point, I think they've kind of figured out the level of interest with these movies. So I think the tracking is going to be pretty accurate. So that's going to be number 1. That's a slam dunk, obviously. Number 2, I think Paddington. You know what? I'm going to go big on my boy Paddington here. Wow. Not because he's anti-American, which I believe he is, but just because I think there is some strength here with this, and I agree. Date movie. If this is the date movie, that's not the Galentine's Day movie, It's gonna be Paddington. So I'm gonna go 20, guys.
Wow. Okay.
20 here.
Okay.
Under that, I agree. I think Hard Eyes is going to be the one that is going to hold on, just because it's got a sort of slasher, got the Valentine's thing going on there. And you know what? I know it's probably going to be Mufasa, but I'm going to say One of Them Days.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I just believe in it. It's gotten so close these past couple weeks. And I agree. I think if you're a gaggle of gals and you just want to go and have fun time and not think about, the guy who asked you to go see Brave New World, and you didn't even go, you dumped him like he wanted you to, and now you're going with all the gals, you're going to see One of Them Days.
Very exciting. I cannot wait to get the results from this weekend, because I don't know if there's a big chance that Captain America way overperforms the expectations, but there is. And listen, I don't want it to be. We always root for box office, but these reviews are pretty bad. So I am curious how that snowballs, and if this movie starts to get some real bad vibes by the weekend. That is a possibility, because these reviews are what they are.
Now, guys, real quick, what do you think is the lowest it could go?
Great question. I was about to say something related to that. I think it could get as low as like 65.
Mm-hmm.
I could see 65 happening. Like Thursday with all these MCU movies will be really telling.
Yeah.
Like are basically, it's like, are the fans out for this one? Like,
right.
are the people that have read the comics, who typically go to all these movies, are they there? And by the way, one thing we don't really talk about a lot that I haven't mentioned in a long time is, like, it is harder than ever to just jump into an MCU story, like for the homework of it all. And I think that's the one thing, like, if people feel like they need to do homework for this movie, that's what I think how it could potentially bottom out, but never quite as low as the Marvels.
Yeah. The TV series aspect of these really has done a lot of damage. When you see these ads for the Thunderbolts, and you see one of the greatest of all time, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, in these movies, but then you do start to think, wait, has Elaine been in these movies before? Like, why is it feels, you'll see the commercials where it's like, oh, obviously Elaine is this huge character in this series, but then to an average person who's not watched these D+ series, you're thinking, wait, why? What did I miss? And then the what did I miss becomes I can't do it anymore. So we'll see. We'll see. But I agree. That's as low as it could go. Anything lower than 65 is going to be totally bananas. It's totally bananas.
Yeah, I could maybe see 50s, but I like high 50s. But I mean,
that would be really bottoming out.
Yeah. But Marvels cannot be beat, I don't think.
Yeah. If it is if come Saturday, it's looking like this movie's going to do in the 50s. I mean, all three of us are jumping on emergency pods on Saturday. Like that is a all hands on deck, DEFCON 5 or DEFCON 1, whatever one is the worst of those. That is where we're at. If Saturday, the Saturday morning, Anthony D is for disaster, D Alessandro right through this is tracking now to make 55 million. Then we're all jumping on emergency podcasts.
Yeah. That'd be a mess. That would truly be a disaster.
Yeah. So we'll see. Exciting weekend coming up. So, of course, email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at theboboyspod across Instagram and TikTok. Wannabe VP of Interns Christopher, killing it with the vertical clips there. Of course, watch us on YouTube. We are YouTubers. Hey, guys. So subscribe to YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Substack. Notes in the show notes, lots of new articles on there all the time, and 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And of course, David, what is coming up for you on the Direct or any of your big projects?
Yeah, so on the Direct podcast, we'll be doing our review of Captain America Brave New World, which will be, spoiler free, and then dive into full spoilers. So if you want to check that whole conversation out, me and Matt on the Direct podcast, that'll be Friday morning dropping. And then the direct.com, just writing. We're going to be this weekend's going to be chock full of Captain America stuff. Hopefully some box office articles I'll be able to write. And yeah, other than that, man, just biding my time for Superman and Fantastic Four. July is going to be a special time for the box office and a special time for the universes that I love.
Oh, it's going to be huge. I mean, this July, that is when David gets paid. That is when, that is when I say the end of June, you hold up the direct. That's when you start to say, oh, you know what? My hand might be broken. My type-in hand might be broken next month unless, a giant stack of greenbacks shows up on my desk. That is the time when you've got them over the barrel, David.
Right.
I'm sure they're great employers and lovely people, but they're going to need you in July. So,
that's when the contract negotiations should be happening.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Time your contract to
July 1st
to end on July 1st. 100%. That's when you got them over that barrel. So Clayton, now that we've negotiated David's contract for him, I got nothing left. That's all I had. I'm spent.
Oh, I finished. Patty, you've said it all. There's nothing left to be said.
No, nothing. So I could get out of here now.
Except for until next time.
We'll smell you at the box office.